Moving on to a team that is flying way under the radar. And so much of the conversation around this team centers around their head coach. And so much around this team kind of centers around whether or not the way that this head coach has approached it is going to continue to be successful here in the modern era of college football. The team I'm talking about are the Clemson Tigers. And you think about Clemson too. Like Clemson last year, really, really shaky in the first 2 months of the season, right? It wasn't pretty. There were 500 football teams at the first 6, 7, or 8 games. It was not good. But down the stretch, starting with the win against Notre Dame, they started to look a little bit more like the Clemson that we grew up with. And for those of you that are in your 30s like me, maybe the Clemson of the late 2010s, maybe we didn't grow up with them, but that's the Clemson that I envision when I still think Clemson and Dabo Swinney. Now, there are question marks around Clemson. No one's denying that. It really centers around their offense and it centers around their quarterback spot. Because they put so much with that style of attack with Garrett Riley and what he wants to be offensively. So much of that offense is going to center around Cade Klubnik's ability to make good decisions, to be accurate at pushing the ball down the field, and to be solid when the opportunity to presents itself to take off, scramble, and maybe make some yards up with his legs. One thing I know for sure, though, is that Clemson's going to have a super elite defense this year. Now, will they be as good as they were back in 2018 when they had 3 or 4 first-round difference-making defensive linemen on their team? I'm not sure they'll be quite as good as that. But if you look at the young pieces that were thrust into the starting lineup after about week 8 or 9 last year, TJ Parker, Khalil Barnes, Avion Terrell, Peter Woods, those guys got way more time down the stretch, and the biggest jump you make as a player oftentimes is from year 1 to year 2. They were already good in year 1. I can only imagine what they're going to look like in Wes Goodwin's system this year. So I think Clemson is poised to make a big leap defensively. Now it's just about whether or not their offense can follow suit. I think their defense will always keep them in games. But can their offense, in the event in which their defense has a little bit of a shaky outing, can their offense score enough to beat some of the most competitive teams on their schedule? A lot of talk this offseason about Miami, tons of talk about Florida State, rightfully so. You can make a case that those 2 rosters are the best in the ACC, but don't sleep on Clemson because that defense is built like a championship unit at all 3 levels. And then offensively, if they can get more consistency out of Cade Klubnik, if they can get more consistency out of the run game behind Phil Maffa, their new starting running back. He was situational last year, played a lot, but I think him now becoming the bell cow is going to be even more effective for this Clemson team, becoming more physical and more downhill in the run game. So I think Clemson's a team that's flying under the radar in a really good way for Dabo Swinney and the Tigers.